Femi Alabi stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, adjusting his tie with trembling hands. The morning had already gone wrong in ways he couldn't have imagined. What started as a simple request from his wife, Sonia, to pick up milk on his way home yesterday had somehow escalated into a full-blown argument that morning. "You never listened to me, Femi," Sonia had shouted, her voice echoing through their small apartment in Ikeja. "I asked you for one simple thing, and you forgot. Again, it's just milk, Sonia. Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" He had fired back, his voice rising to match hers. The neighbors could probably hear them through the thin walls, but in that moment, he didn't care. As a Christian man, Femi knew his anger was wrong. He attended Lighthouse Church every Sunday, sang in the choir, and could quote scriptures about love and patience. But somehow, when life pressed down on him, the mounting bills, the failed business ventures, the constant struggle to make ends meet in Lagos, his faith felt distant, like something he wore on Sundays but couldn't access during the week. Now, sitting in his beat-up Honda Civic on the Third Mainland Bridge, Femi felt the familiar fire burning in his chest. The traffic was at a complete standstill, a sea of vehicles stretching as far as he could see. His business appointment at the Echo Hotel was scheduled for 11 a.m., and it was already 10:45. This contract could change everything for his small catering business. He needed this opportunity to supply food items to their conference center. The anger from his morning fight with Sonia still simmered beneath the surface, and now the Lagos traffic was pushing him over the edge. He drummed his fingers impatiently on the steering wheel, muttering under his breath about the government, the roads, and his luck. That's when he saw it, a massive black Toyota Land Cruiser trying to edge into his lane from the right. The driver was attempting to cut in line, probably thinking his expensive SUV gave him special privileges. Femi's anger erupted like a volcano. He laid on his horn, the sound blaring across the bridge. "Where do you think you're going?" he shouted through his open window. "You think because you drive a big car, you can just cut in front of everyone?" The Land Cruiser's windows were tinted, but Femi could see the driver's silhouette. Ignoring any sense of decorum or his Christian upbringing, he let loose a string of expletives that would have made his pastor cringe. Other drivers turned to stare, some honking in support, others shaking their heads at the morning drama. To Femi's surprise, the Land Cruiser quietly moved back into its original position without any retaliation. No return shouting, no rude gestures, just a calm retreat. This somehow made Femi even angrier. He continued muttering curses under his breath, convinced that rich people thought they owned the roads. By the time traffic began moving again, Femi was 30 minutes late. He rushed through the hotel lobby, his shirt slightly wrinkled from the stress and Lagos heat. The receptionist directed him to the conference room where he was to meet with Mr. Johnson, the procurement manager. Femi knocked and entered, his rehearsed smile plastered on his face despite his frazzled state. Behind the large mahogany desk sat a distinguished man in his 40s, wearing a crisp white shirt and navy blazer. The man looked up from his documents, and Femi's blood turned to ice. It was him, the driver of the black Land Cruiser. Mr. Johnson's expression shifted from professional courtesy to recognition, then to something that looked like disappointment. The silence in the room was deafening. Femi opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. What could he possibly say? How could he explain away his road rage to the very man who now held his business future in his hands? "Please, have a seat, Mr. Alabi," Mr. Johnson said calmly, his voice carrying the same composed tone Femi had witnessed on the bridge, patient, controlled, everything Femi was not. The meeting proceeded with painful politeness. Mr. Johnson asked about Femi's catering experience, his capacity to handle large orders, and his business references. Femi answered as best he could, but he could see it in the manager's eyes, the contract was already lost. Not because of his qualifications or his food quality, but because of who he had revealed himself to be in those angry moments on the Third Mainland Bridge. "We'll be in touch, Mr. Alabi," Mr. Johnson said as he stood, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming in today." Femi shook the offered hand, knowing he would never hear from them again. As he walked back through the hotel lobby, his phone buzzed with a text from Sonia. "I'm sorry about this morning, honey. I know you're doing your best. I love you." But instead of softening his heart, the message only fueled his rage. He sat in his car in the hotel parking lot, his hands gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. This was everyone else's fault. Sonia for starting the argument, the government for the terrible roads, that arrogant man in the Land Cruiser for trying to cut in line. Why should he apologize for defending himself? That man had no right to judge me. Femi shouted to his empty car. So what if I got angry? He was the one trying to cheat the system. He typed back angrily to Sonia, "Don't apologize. You started this mess this morning. Now I've lost the biggest contract of my life because of you." Over the following weeks, Femi's anger continued to grow. He refused to acknowledge any fault in the hotel incident, telling everyone who would listen how he was mistreated. His wife grew distant as his outbursts became more frequent. His few remaining friends began avoiding his calls. Even at church, people whispered about his angry rants during prayer meetings. 3 months later, Femi's catering business collapsed entirely. Word had spread through Lagos's tight business community about his unprofessional behavior. No one wanted to risk hiring someone known for explosive anger. His marriage crumbled as Sonia finally left, taking their children to stay with her sister. Sitting alone in his now empty apartment, Femi still blamed everyone but himself. But the silence around him spoke louder than any rebuke. His anger had cost him everything: his business, his marriage, his children, his reputation, even his church family, who could no longer tolerate his bitter spirit. As he stared at the eviction notice in his hands, the words his grandmother used to quote echoed mockingly in his empty room. "Be not hasty in thy spirit to be angry, for anger resteth in the bosom of fools." Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verse 9. Femi crumpled the notice and threw it across the room, still refusing to see the truth that everyone else could see clearly. He had become the very fool the scripture warned against.